And we're recording. I'm gonna give that bitch some knowledge. I'ma read, I'ma read, I'ma read. I'ma read, I'ma read, I'ma read. I'ma read that bitch. Okay. I'm gonna get too far with it. This is one of my favorite songs. I'ma read. I felt it was appropriate because of what we talked about today. So that's our intro music. Hello, everyone. Okay. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Interviews You Didn't Ask For, where everyone on this show is someone I know. I'm obviously geeked because one of my best friends is on this show, Danielle. I didn't ask you if that's the name you want to use. It's too late.
It's fine. It's fine.
Because the only rule is no stopping. Whatever happens, happens. But I've known her since 2004.
Ish, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The one thing I tell everyone, like, I communicate with all my friends very differently. I have some friends that I see very often, some I talk to once a month. I have been having a Facebook chat conversation with her since, I would say, 2007.
Yes, ongoing, yes.
And one ongoing chat. So if anything ever came up and they wanted to come for either of us, they gonna have to dig.
There are like years of receipts.
Years of receipts, a shit talking, a shade throwing.
Yes.
All of this for, I want to say 40 years, but for at least, a decade or two. So absolutely. I'm pretty proud of that. If anything ever happens where I'm sad, I can always go through it. I could search it for keywords like, no, in 2011, you told me this, like, it's great.
That's right.
I'm really excited because this is an interview, but we also have a topic we're going to talk about. I didn't do my recent research, but you put me up on gay.
Yeah.
But I don't want to skip ahead. Let me slow down. First, let me introduce yourself before we get into the actual tea. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Danielle. I am one of Jasmine's good friends, and I'm proud to say that. We met at Grand Valley State University many, many moons ago. And we do have an ongoing, very intriguing, interesting, like, we just pick up like days later, like, girl, you did guess what? And it's been like 5 days. So it's good shit. So in my regular day-to-day life, I am a service coordinator. I work in affordable housing with seniors, helping them connect to services so that they can stay independent for as long as they want. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now. And I also freelance. So I'm going to shamelessly plug, I'm a freelance copywriter. My company is called D Southern Writes. And so I've actually been writing like all day today. And then I stopped to have a cocktail and do this interview. And I'm really excited, even though I don't know what I'm going to talk about, because I really don't know what I'm going to say, because I didn't really like take notes or anything like that.
It's supposed to be natural.
Yeah, like, I'm a mom of 2 little boys. They're bad as hell. It's quarantine. So I'm locked up in my office right now, which I'm having redone, sort of, kind of, because I hired a professional organizer to help me kind of get through all that stuff. So I'm on my, like, Marie Kondo type shit right now. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here tonight and to do this, especially during quarantine. It's like something to kind of like lift the spirits and do something a little bit different. So I'm really excited for tonight. So yeah, pretty much, I think I said anything is fair game, except I said, don't ask me where I work. Like, don't ask me where I work.
I wouldn't do that. No.
I'm not going to tell y'all that shit.
I don't tell nobody where I work. If you know, you know. If you don't, keep guessing.
Tommy got a job, but don't worry about where it is.
Right.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Before we get into, I want to say I have used her services before, her copywriting services. I will tag it in the timestamps. I've used the service for, I like to do LinkedIn posts, articles, and anybody who knows me knows one of my big flaws in my family, it runs in my family, is I cannot spell. I also do not have a good grasp on the English language. I'm also bad with math. I don't know what I do well, but so it was very helpful because it's feedback I continue to get even in my career. Like, my job is going to pay for me to have professional Grammarly. It's bad. So I didn't want to be on LinkedIn looking like ass. So even think about it that way. not just the stuff like you're writing a book or you have like this
Yeah.
media, even if you're just trying to present yourself professionally, if you just need those things copyright written, consider providing professional, particularly someone that I'm recommending, Danielle. So,
Yeah.
not a tea. We are going to talk about one of my favorite things that I just want there to be a Netflix
Yeah.
out, which
It's
is
deserving. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if folks know what wife school is, but you are the expert in the room because you put me up on game. Could you tell us a little bit about what exactly is wife school?
Yeah, so Wife School is an online, well, no, actually, it's a real life institution of women who have come together to get training and like more training to become wives. So it's run by a very interesting character. I'm not going to use names because I was actually doing some research earlier and I was going back and forth as to whether like I should like name names. And like I'd like to think nobody would ever see this, but you just never know. So I'm not
part of the shit with wife school is the people who do not like wife school, their people will come for you.
Yeah. So there is a woman, and if you pretty much like Google it or Facebook it, like you can find it yourself. So I will just leave it at that. But there is a woman, she's a Black woman, and she's been doing this for years. And so basically she has made her living off of capitalizing off of single Black women and their desire to have a marriage, a father for their children, because she also does target single Black mothers who we know are already like stressed out, worn out, maybe in some cases want a man, need a man for like financial support. Like, let's keep it real, like for financial support, like help with these kids, like maybe their children's dad is not in the picture or active, so they want marriage too, and they also want the companionship as well. So obviously everybody don't want to be married, but she's targeting the women who do really want this, and maybe they're like of an age where it's a little bit more critical, especially like if they want to have children. So like that biological clock is kind of ticking, and it's like you trying to get a man so that you can get your husband and get your little Black babies. And so that's what she has been doing. I want to say for at least 10 years. I'm not exactly
I want to throw in there just so people are clear.
Yeah.
The service she's offering is to train unmarried women, and I think sometimes newly married women, how to be a wife as in preparation. So this isn't like I'm married and I want to know, it's like, here's how you get a man by being wifey material.
Basically. Yeah. And then she also does do matchmaking. So I think that's one of like kind of the behind the scenes things. But I have watched like a ton of YouTubes. I'm like a big Lipstick Alley fan, so I hate to like divulge all my secrets, but I go to Lipstick Alley for everything. I believe it is a credible source. It should be a journal, all of that kind of shit. Like Lipstick Alley is just like, I want to call it ghetto Twitter, but it's not even that. It's so much more.
I feel like it's not necessarily if the audience, because I've went to Lipstick Alley a couple of times. That one time I decided I was just gonna spend the day on Lipstick Alley. It's that old format of forums. It's a forum format.
Yeah, it is.
I don't want to say it's for older, but I feel like I'm more comfortable there. Back when natural hair website that had that's my space. Twitter is too much for me. I don't need people me every time.
And it's more real. And like there are people who will get on there who have actually experienced her classes, who have taken her classes and can like call on the bullshit. And it's like you just know that they're not lying. Like they've actually had real experiences with these people. They don't use their real names. Of course, it's all anonymous. So I've had the opportunity to kind of like read through a lot of that stuff. But she also is doing some matchmaking as well. And what allegedly is happening is that she is matching these women to men. The women are paying. Let's be clear about that. This is
that's the other thing we need to clarify.
This is a business.
It's not
we
a
can call
service
it,
that she volunteers to do. This is a service that
yeah,
she paid to be,
yeah,
almost like, I'll say
yeah,
sorority because you know what I want to call it, but
yeah.
I
It's
might as
it's
well,
kind
yeah.
of like like a pick me brothel sort of.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. It's where hoteps go to find their wives. That is exactly what it
yes.
is.
So so yeah, they find husbands for them, but the catch is, I think that what they're doing is they're finding men who are like overseas in like other countries who need a green card. So it's kind of like a 90-day fiance type thing, except this is somebody who you ain't never had interactions with. And they're marrying them off. So it's like, I can say that I got a husband out of the deal. And then this man, he probably pays something too, to get like the pick, because they have these parties and shit like that. So, they'll invite the men to the parties to kind of, see the women, meet the women, things like that. And so it really is a business. I don't know if I would call it, I don't know if it's a scam, because I guess in some sense they are getting what they paid for. Like, you asked for a husband and bitch, here go your husband. But who's to say that,
you ain't clarified.
like, this is really what you asked for. So I was watching this YouTube video earlier, and this lady was referring to them as like the Dusties. She was referring to the men as the Dusties. And so she made a really good point, because one of the pieces of the training that I always kind of was weirded out about is like, so the lady who runs this, she's kind of awkward, like in her being. It's weird. It's not that she's unattractive. In fact, I think she's very attractive. But she's very awkward in her being. And then her ideas about, like, she tells you what you're supposed to look like. So for example, like, our asses would have to go with the wigs. Like, you're supposed to just be like natural, and which, we do natural, but her idea of natural is more like,
I want to say,
it's almost, go ahead.
I feel like anybody who's watching this is kind of like, like, I don't fully get what the problem is, right?
Yeah.
Like, other than the matchmaking with the people, like, that's mildly problematic, but not understanding, like, well, if the pick-me's want the hoteps and she putting them together, sounds like a great business.
Well, here's the problem. I can tell you what I think the problem is. So I feel like the problem is that you're preying on a vulnerable group of people. And that's what I feel like is the problem, because you are preying on like the emotions of these single women who are perhaps, I don't want to say lonely, but they have needs. Maybe they do have real needs for protection in their lives, because maybe they don't have family or other resources for that. Maybe they do have real needs for, a father figure or a significant other, a second parent for their children. So I feel like that is the problem, and you're selling a dream. Like, you're selling a dream. And then, you're telling them to basically like change who they are, because one of her big things is like, femininity versus masculinity type thing. And so if you're a woman who, like we all are, like, we speak up for ourselves, we, even if we are married, we still speak up for ourselves, we're still very vocal, that's considered like masculine behavior. So
she's really big on the traditional gender roles. Mixed in with pro-blackness, which again sounds very positive, but let's go back to the beginning, because I know you. Sure. What do you know from the start of this? Walk us through the history, or even if it's like where you found out about wife school.
Yeah, so I really don't know exactly where I found out about it. But what I think the history is that she is, from a big family. I don't know. There's like a little bit about her family history, kind of. She was actually married like once or twice before. She has like 4 kids, but all them kids ain't her man's that she with now. And word on the street is that she ain't even married to man's now that she's saying is her husband. They ain't got no paper. So she's running around calling herself Mrs. and teaching wife school, and everybody's like, she just chilling in a broke down ass apartment taking y'all money. So
she's okay. I'm not even gonna get into it because I'm about to say where she living right now. Go ahead.
So how I think she got her start was like she wrote this book, right? She claims that she traveled all over the world and she came up like with these. She kind of put together like these cultural artifacts from around the world about like what it means to be masculine and what it means to be feminine and what men want. It really focuses on what men want. And catering to the needs of men. And the needs of Black men specifically. And so there is that cultural piece. And I think that's what differentiates it from like other stuff, because you're just kind of like, well, it's pro Black. Well, how can it be wrong? You know, because I even was reading the shit and I was kind of like, well, damn, like I just want my husband to do everything around here. Like
sometimes she says shit that you're like, but you know what?
Yeah. Like some of the shit do be resonating. Like, yeah, I do want your ass to do everything for me, but you know, at the same time, like there has to be some balance. And so she wrote this book, and y'all got to go on there to see what the name of the book is. I was getting ready to say it, but I ain't gonna say that.
I'll probably tell people just DM me, or maybe
But and you know, send them the link.
I'm
right
not gonna
now
tag
she's
nothing.
Not even on like social media. I think she's got other people running it, because I think she done hightailed it like out of the country or something.
Because that's what they were saying, that she was in Paris. That's why I was like,
like
they said she left the country.
Yeah, she ran. So it's just some crazy ass shit. But I think she started with a book. And then, you know, talking about like, you know, what men need and, you know, like how to cater to men so as to get them to marry you. So it all boils down to like the purposes of marriage. It all goes back to marriage and trying to achieve that goal, which, you know, we take for granted. But there are a lot of women who do want to be married. I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like there's women who really want that. And I'm not going to say there's not men. I'm going to assume there's some men out there that won't be married so they can get some dinner, but you know, especially during this quarantine. But you know, like there are people out there who they want to be married, like eventually, like ultimately they want a life partner. And so again, just like praying on that. So there was the book, and then from there she started doing classes. And so there are online classes. I don't know a ton about the nature of those, but I know one that I looked at earlier today was like feminine voice training. And there was a feminine voice training challenge. And so they all talk like this.
Oh, I don't have feminine voice.
And then they smile when they talk. And this is the feminine voice challenge. And if I ever did this shit to my husband, he would really be scared and ask me to stop that shit, because
I'm gonna try that.
Like,
but it reminds me of. Do you remember like there was a whole thing going around, like it was like the panty challenge and the floor challenge.
Yeah.
Real quick for anybody who watching this, the panty challenge was to show your panties and show that there's no discharge or anything.
Yeah. You are not human. You have dry vag. You have no discharge.
Yes. That ain't how it's supposed to be. But men believe that you're supposed to have a vagina that's completely till they show up. And then the floor,
exactly,
you getting on your hands and knees and scrubbing the floor. So to me, it sounds like in line with that. I don't know if I can do that voice. Nope, that's ugly. Go ahead.
Yeah, it was very like awkward, and there were several women in the video doing it. Oh God. There were like several women in the video doing it, and yeah, it was really bad. Like it wasn't bad. It was sad to see. It was like really sad to see, because it was like, and all these women are not, you know, knocking on 40 or something like this. Like there are a lot of younger women, like younger, very impressionable women, you know, like maybe women in their 20s who, you know, kind of are in that stage where, I mean, we have to look at how dating is right now. So like dating is very different. And it's always been difficult, but you know, it's like more difficult, I think, because of the ways that we communicate now, and because everything is so technological, and there's not a lot of opportunity to get to know people firsthand. And so I think people are like really thirsting for that opportunity. And, you know, to see these younger women who they're at an age where they probably haven't had a real opportunity to like maybe meet men, because these are women who like men. So let me just say that. So these are women who want husbands. They haven't had an opportunity to meet men organically a whole lot, you know, or if they have, maybe those haven't been good experiences for them. So because they haven't had those very organic experiences, you know, they're going, you know, a step beyond kind of like the dating sites and stuff like that. And they're trying to get some kind of man who is already vetted. So it's like, I don't have to sit here and go on, I don't know what the fuck I'm thinking about, Plenty of Fish. I don't have to go on like
I've been on
Plenty of
Fish
or something like this, or not TikTok. What the hell is the other one? My coworker.
Okay, Cupid. Tinder.
Okay, Cupid, or something like that. To, you know, to find a man, and then I have to try to like, you know, talk to him and figure out, you know, if we're on the same page. Okay, and then like, is he a safe person? Do I feel like okay to even meet him somewhere? And
especially if you got kids.
Yeah, especially if I've got children, you know, like there's just so much at stake. And so here is someone who is married, has children, has already gone through this process, has already found, and her husband is like French or something like that. So, you know, he's foreign, he's exotic, he's handsome, he's tall. I'm gonna stop with the quote fingers and put him behind my back. So he, you know, he's sort of like, you know, what you want a man to be. That's how she presents him, not because of what he presents, but of how she presents him. And so you're dealing with somebody, and they create these personas that there are a lot of single women who want to be that. They want to get to that point. And I think that's enough for them. It's enough for them to look at this person and say, I want the life you have. You're telling me about the life you have, and you're showing me pictures of the life you have. And that's enough for me to know that I want it. And she ain't the only one out here doing that. Let me be clear.
You know, I've assumed that, but she's the only one I've seen. Like, it's like a great racket. Like, if I didn't give a shit about Black women, I'd be running up. I'd be making some money.
Yeah, there are others. There's another one who I will not say her name, but she is
Tell me later, because I don't know. Tell me later.
Yeah. Preacher lady. Who does the same thing. So, you know, but hers is more geared toward like a religious.
But that makes more sense.
Yeah.
To talk about preparation for being a wife, because in a religious concept that makes sense. But the wife school one, this is not tied to religion at all.
Well, her spin on it has always been like low key. Like if you really read through the stuff, which ain't nobody got time. I don't even have time to do this shit, but I've been reading through it. So, I think that her underlying thing is that you need protection, is that women need protection.
And that's what she was on more recently with the COVID shit.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you don't have a man to protect you who's going to the grocery store.
Yeah. Like shit is gonna go bad. You gonna need a man to protect you. Who's gonna protect you? Like, you need to get yourself a husband. It's like arm yourself. It's like a security system or something like that. Like, you need to get this product because, you know, you have all these concerns and you have all these safety issues. And I think that, you know, COVID is like the perfect storm for her to succeed in. If she was not probably off somewhere right now, it would be the perfect storm, because now it's kind of like, I said this shit was gonna happen. I said some shit was gonna shut down.
That's really what she's been saying. She's been saying,
where your man
I told y'all this was gonna come.
Yeah. So it's that's why I said she's really good. One thing I can say, she's really good at hitting those, and I'm a copywriter, so she's real good at hitting those pain points. She's very good at knowing what her audience's struggles are. She knows where they're struggling, and she creates a narrative that just gets right at that and provides a solution, an easy solution. Like, I got the solution. Like you out here scared. Like what if we experience famine? What if we experience drought? Hey,
but
the damn farms are drying up.
Important to keep in mind that a lot of what she's saying is based on, one, you preparing to be a wife in terms of being a more feminine person, but also two, that men, you will have to be with a very masculine man
yeah,
who lives and breathes the husband concept, but there's no husband school.
Right.
I don't think.
Right.
I feel like I read something. It might have just been a match, but there's no husband school to prepare you.
There's no husband school.
Are you
in
teaching
her
these
mind,
dudes to hunt? Like, what the hell?
Yeah. In her mind, the woman has to do the work and she has to make herself available. Like in her mind, men do what they do and they gonna do what they do regardless. And we have to get in tune with what they do. So they do not need to find us. And I want to bring this up before I forget it, because the lady was talking about it earlier, getting back to the training that the women receive. They receive training on how to look and dress appropriately in order to snag a husband. And to be honest, like this is not really unlike some things that I've heard growing up, you know, like you should look like this, or, you know, you need to make sure your hair, like if you want a boyfriend, you're going to have to, you know, make sure that you kind of look this way and look that way and all that kind of stuff. And do you see how such and such looks? And she doesn't have a husband. And, you know, I've heard things like that growing up. And so it's not that far-fetched from that. And so one of the things she does is like, she tells you how to dress, like what types of clothes to wear. And I was supposed to wear some wife school shit, but you know, hey, Janet
work out.
Popping the day.
You're right. I probably should have prepared. This is not wife school attire. Let me tell you, this amount of cleavage. You're like supposed to respect yourself. That's so you're not supposed to wear what I'm wearing to be
right. You're supposed to have on like a Stepford Wives dress. Or like an Easter dress, like a church, old school church Easter dress. Let me not say new school, because new school, they come to church with like thong out.
Yeah, so if you watch Greenleaf, what they wear to church, I'm like, oh, that's cute. I wear that to the club.
Yeah, it'd be like cheeks clapping in the pew in front of you and stuff. So like
they there to get a man too, though. I can't be mad. They there for the same reason.
Yeah. So like an old school Easter dress. And then like your hair needs to be natural, but not like our cute, you know, moisturized natural, like a dry.
Because she believes that you should wash your hair daily.
Every day. And
you're
not supposed to sleep with a bonnet on, because your man.
So you gonna be bald, and she don't have no hair.
Yeah.
Her hair is
not in good condition. She has daughters. She has like 4 daughters. Their hair is not like in stupendous condition either. So I wouldn't rely on her for hair advice. And, you know, wear your bonnet, long as it don't stink. Wear it. If it stank, put it in the washing machine and you're going to be okay.
Real quick, a tip that I would like to recommend, buy multiple bonnets. So you
absolutely
wash and you got one for backup.
Absolutely.
I have one in my little travel bag. Keep one at your man house. Just buy a bunch of bonnets.
Absolutely. You know, because if you're with a black man, he's seen someone wear a bonnet all his fucking life. So it's okay. And if you're not with a black man,
have a conversation with him. It's time for him to learn. Yes.
And if you're not with a man, then she or they may be wearing a bonnet too. So it's okay.
Put your bonnet on. Don't lose your edges over
we're not gonna worry about none of those types of things. You know, love is love. So yeah, and so the look is very basic. There's no makeup. There's no, it kind of, you know, reminds me of when my mother grew up in the Pentecostal church, and my grandfather was a pastor, and so she lived a very preacher's kid life back in, you know, the 60s and shit in the South. And so she talks about my grandmother who just doesn't give any fucks. Like her and my grandfather are divorced. She just very religious, but like doesn't give any fucks. My grandfather be like, I'm a bishop, and she'd be like, he ain't ordained. Like she just don't care. And and she is a very like old school, like she wears like beautiful outfits, but like doesn't wear makeup.
Mhm.
She still relaxes her hair. She has a beautiful head of hair. She still relaxes her hair and stuff. But my mother was like, you know, she used to get a lot of flack. My grandmother used to get a lot of flack from the other women at church because back then they were completely natural. Like they didn't do makeup and they didn't press their hair. Cause you know, back then you got a hot press.
Yeah.
They didn't press their hair. And my grandmother was like, fuck that, I'm getting this hot press, I'm gonna style. So she would get her hair pressed, you know, and she was a cute lady and everything. And so she would come to church with her hair pressed and they were, you know, like, who does she think she is? So it you know, I feel like these things kind of tie in, you know, we sort of have these roots, you know, that come out of this stuff.
It's
you know,
to me, it almost reminds me of the good old party of like wanting to go back to the old days, and that's a lot of feeling of like because we romanticize the old days. Even Black folk to say, you know, our men were at home and they were strong and they were doing this, without thinking about the other elements that were part of those relationships where marriages lasted because where was you gonna go?
Exactly, there was nowhere to go. If there was abuse, you withstood it. So, you know, women they worked. We ain't gonna say they didn't work. Oh, they worked their asses off, but, you know, they didn't work outside the house and they weren't respected enough. And, you know, you couldn't go back to your family because everybody who showed up was a mouth to feed. So they was just having all these kids back then and everybody was a mouth to feed. So you was just trying to hurry up and get people up out your house. You know, you weren't worried where they went.
At 18, you gotta go because we only got 2 bedrooms and we got
that's it. So they're taught how to look. And because of that, one of the points that this lady brought up earlier in this video, and I was like, that shit just sounds spot on. She was saying that this lady, wife school lady, does this because of the types of men who she's bringing in to pair with them.
You know, as you were saying that, I was like, it clicked in my head, like, oh, as you're saying,
so
they are looking. Like, if I'm gonna pay for a woman, I want a woman who's gonna submit.
And she's like lowering their expectations. I don't know what to call it. Like she's lowering their attractiveness. She's lowering their beauty and things like that. Like kind of like decreasing on that purposely, because these are men who, she called them dusties, and she was like, these are not men who have a lot of money. These are not men who are like super well respected in their communities. And so of course they can't feel like real men if they're coming into a situation and they need a woman who's like all made up, and you know, whether she got natural or wig, her hair is like really done really beautifully, and you know, maybe she's got on a form-fitting, you know, outfit where, you know, she's showing her body and like she's really confident within herself, and she feels like she looks good and she's doing good things. You know, they don't want a woman like that because that kind of like diminishes for them, and then they feel like, well, is she gonna be with me? That makes them insecure. Is she gonna be with me, or am I gonna come home one day to somebody else being up in my house? So therefore she's creating like these dry ass women, these dry looking ass women,
right,
who they feel completely fine. Like, you know what? I'll take that one. You know, because again, they are attractive now. They are attractive, but it's just like, of course, clothing and how we do our hair and jewelry and all those aspects, of course, make us more, you know, stand out more and make us more appealing. And she's not allowing that in her program. So yeah, so that was just like an interesting point that I was making. So these women are actually kind of, you know, dumbing down on their regular beauty routines in order to
let's lay some groundwork for people who may not know. Why would a woman want to participate in this? I know you said protection and stuff, but why would any woman say, I am going to pay money, take the matching service out of it, to learn to be a wife? Why would I pay for that?
Well, you know, there are a lot of pressures, you know, in society and from our families as well. And you know, you don't know what these specific women are going through. They may be in a situation where people are going, well, where's your husband? Well, you ain't got no boyfriend. Well, are you gay? And I hate to say that, but you know, that is unfortunately how we treat people, you know, and we turn that into something that is something to be ashamed of, you know. So are you, or, you know, like, what are you doing? You're, you know, or are you weird? And so, and then we've also created that to be becoming a wife as part of a woman's like best accomplishment in life. And so it is a life accomplishment.
It's the best thing you can do.
Are not married, have you really accomplished anything? Like, like, so you won 6 Grammys. Okay, bitch, but did you get married though?
But no, for real, that really, you could be 60 years old, VP of a company, CEO of a company, and people were like, and she married. But you are married, and all you did was get married, stay at home. And I'm not, I don't want to say all you did, but I'm not trying to shame anybody. But if you got married, had kids, and you raised them kids, and they didn't murder nobody, that is something nobody will ask you, where's your career? No one will ask you that.
Not one person. No, not at all. Not at all.
Women across the board. I don't think that has to be race. That's just across the board.
Yeah. And so it definitely is a very much like expected life event that you're supposed to partake in. Like, you are supposed to get a husband, like, point blank period. And if you can't get a husband, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Like, what's wrong with you? Or if you don't want a husband, what's wrong with you? Like, because there's no way that you could absolutely just be completely fulfilled, like being single. You know, so something must be wrong with you. And so, so again, I kind of go back to like especially like these younger women, who are on there, who already have this message in their head that like they're supposed to be married. And I'm just like, you ain't even 30 yet. You know, like, you ain't even met nobody yet. Like,
live your best thought life. This is the time.
Like, live your life. Like, perhaps if you would actually travel, spend your money instead of spending your money on wife school. If you would travel, like, if you would just go, like, just do you and just be happy. Like, if this is what's really in your heart and you really do want to be partnered with somebody, like, that will come. Like, you will meet somebody.
But you have to also be a woman who buys into that concept of masculinity.
Yeah.
You have to be a woman who believes that there's a role you're supposed to play, because there's no way.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted a man, only people who are going to see this is if I tag you in it, anybody who knows me. So anybody who knows me saw the post of that woman who reached out to me about this matchmaking for high earning.
Yeah, I saw that.
Like that weird shit. But there's a lot of services out there. If you're really trying to find somebody, this one is particularly for a certain type of woman, a Black woman who believes in the idea of a man performing certain roles and a woman performing certain roles.
Yeah.
And the weirdest part to me is that I always felt like you play to your strengths. If I have to take a class, that's not my strength.
Right. And, you know, and I think that there's something to be said about, you know, Black women feeling like Black men are not performing those duties at the level that they should be. And so again, I need to pay this woman to vet these men, because I'm probably meeting Black men, you know, just on a daily basis, who they fine and everything, but then like when I get with them, we not on the same page. So and so I need to, you know, not waste my time anymore. I need to not waste my time, and I need to not like waste my body, waste my money, you know, all this kind of stuff.
I think it's also about the intention. And the last interview I did, we talked about this, the intention that you have going to a relationship. And a lot of men are going to relationships like, I'm just here to fuck, you know, and that's it. I'm not trying to get married. And if you know your goal is marriage for whatever reason, I'm not saying it's good or bad or whatever, but if you know your goal is marriage, you want to meet someone who has the same goal.
Exactly.
I do want to ask, so outside of the larger things, what are some, because one of the examples you use is like the voice training. What are some of the other things that she teaches in wife school that's supposed to help you be a better wife and more feminine?
Yeah, so submission is definitely one of them, like submission in general, like basically turning things over to men. So conversations, just simple conversations. Like basically her example is that she doesn't have phone conversations. Her
That's the
husband
thing that
does
I'll
that.
never forget because I hate talk. Okay, to be honest though,
But I ain't
that's my
gonna lie
life.
though, I was kind of like,
Right. I'm like, that is my real life. I hate, and John can tell you, I hate having to call a place. He has to call,
yeah.
but it like, I just don't like to do it. So that's why I said sometimes I'm like,
But yeah,
great.
and that's the thing. Like she gets at that stuff that I think, really is relevant for like some of us, like you just don't kind of want to be bothered with all this fluff. So it's kind of like get you somebody else to do it for you.
But I want to say the reason that I think women, some of the things she talks about resonate because women as a whole are often exhausted with the type.
Yeah.
It's emotional labor. So every time I have to call, I had to do this yesterday for my mom. I had to call the front desk and try to get somebody so they can tell me something very simple. Who do I make this check out to? But it felt like so much work.
Yeah.
To call, and it felt like work because I'm already using up my tank of emotional labor on so many other things. So shit like a phone call to the light company, I don't want to do that shit. I'm already in charge of the finances and the money and this and that. I don't have to call them and ask any questions. So the idea that a man will do that for me, my man will do, like that's really appealing because really all she's offering is a man who will take on some of that emotional labor. That's it.
Exactly. And I think, that's probably the biggest benefit. Like you don't have to worry anymore. And so that gets presented as, you're being a man right now. Like you need to stop being a man and let a man be a man. And so for a minute you kind of like, well, shit, bitch, like I think this is
I'm like, maybe I need to throw some money her way because I don't want to be a man and a woman. Like,
well, sign me up until you see that she's like, life school is normally $325,000, but just for the next 24 hours, it's going to be $12.50. And then you're just like, wait a minute. Wait one damn minute. This does not sound right. And then that's what kind of starts to make you, like look at like what's really going on here. So yeah.
So she teaches you things like you don't have to make them phone calls, how to use the soft voice on the dude,
how to dress, how to do your hair.
How to cook. I forgot about that. She talks
cooking.
About cooking.
Yeah, she does do cooking. Let me see what else.
It's ridiculous because I remember she said something like there's certain meals you should be able to make and you should be prepared to make a meal for like 5 or 10 in case your husband says is coming in here, some crazy shit.
And you can't use any paper or plastic ware. You have to do everything on dishes. It doesn't matter if you're having a family barbecue, a reunion, a picnic, none of that stuff. No plastic, no paper. That's when I knew she was a scammer. That was some bullshit.
She does preach the tenets of Hotepism.
Yeah.
Of pick-me-ism. That you think about that. He gets the big piece of chicken and it's got to be on a real plate. How do you serve him a 5-course meal on a paper plate?
Yeah.
You got to be ready. If he calls you and says, you got 45 minutes to make an excellent meal because he bringing his boss home, who I don't know who just, like, I see in the movies, but who's just bringing their boss home for dinner? I don't know. But 45 minutes, make a rack of lamb.
Yeah.
How to raise your children. She talks about that too.
I was going to say, she also kind of like talks about the mothering part too. And she really like glamorizes it. Like, we homeschool our children and we don't yell at our children. So again, playing on these emotions because, just looking at, a lot of, not all, but a lot of, Black families and our backgrounds and, stress and how we discipline our children, how some of us have maybe been disciplined and we're looking to not discipline our children in those same ways. So again, here is someone who's saying, you don't need to spank your children. You don't need to yell at them.
And the thing is, I agree with, and that's the hard part.
Yeah,
I agree.
Exactly. And so, these are things that you're kind of like, well, yeah, I totally agree with that. And so, definitely, not repeating those behaviors with your children and teaching them multiple languages and traveling with them and, having tea time with them, and doing all these different things. Yeah. So there's the physical appearance, there's the physical appearance stuff. There is the mothering stuff. And then of course there's sex. Sex. So obviously what goes along with this, you need to give your husband sex anytime he wants it, because men need sex. This is their way of emoting. If they want sex from you, that means that you're special and you need to give them that. And you owe that to them. And so we've not talked about what happens if you tired or if you don't feel like it or if you mad or any of this other type of stuff, or if you just don't feel like doing it. Like, you need to do it anyway, like regardless. And that goes along with the program too. So
it's so much. And I know there's other topics we want to talk about, but I'm gonna just leave this at that point because I want to say, no, I'm not gonna leave it there because I want to end up with this.
No, it's fine. We can talk about whatever.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up that the we talked about earlier that she might have left the country.
Yeah.
I want to wrap it up with, why do you think she left the country? What could have caused her to leave?
I think the feds are after her. I do. Because I think that there are, for as many, success stories as she may have, I guess, of actually marrying women off, there are probably so many who are left to the wayside. And so many who haven't gotten what they thought they paid for. I think that in some cases she was taking women to other countries with her.
She's been accused of sex trafficking.
Yeah. Yep. Sex trafficking and things like that. And so the peoples is after her. They after her. And so she's running. She's on the run.
I just want to bring that up so people understand that we're not talking about like,
it's not. She's a criminal. She's a criminal.
This some real shit.
Criminal, but the bitch a criminal.
Right. And I wasn't gonna say it earlier, but a lot of people said it's a cult. That's why we don't want to say the name.
I was gonna say that too. Her following is very cultish.
Yes.
It's very cultish.
It's worse than the Beehive. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's very cultish.
Repeatedly, they will, I think some of her people even did interviews, because the stuff I've seen, I went down a long path with this. The stuff I've seen is like people who were working with her before, who have come to talk about some of the stuff she was doing. It's just a whole mess. But they said she's in the UK or something, or Europe rather. I'm sorry, she's in Europe or someplace overseas, running from the fact that they got warrants for her arrest, but so did the lady next door. That's why she don't come by me. So, but I live in the hood. So
yeah.
But
she probably do too. Talking about she live in France.
Right. She probably the lady next door for all I know.
Right.
She not doing them. And that's when you talk about awkward in the body, like she does the most awkward ass poses. That's the thing. Like, I've never understood. She'll pose for photos like.
She will.
What are you doing?
Like, this is what's feminine.
Yeah. And you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Well, all of that, I want to transition over to just talk about scamming, because, scamming is really happening a lot right now.
It is.
And especially with COVID. But go ahead. What was you going to say?
Yeah. So with scams, so I work with seniors. I call them older adults. And so scams are something that I'm always very, like, my senses are very heightened to all the time. One really good podcast to listen to, especially if you have an aging parent, which we all do because we aging. So, not Asian, aging. Don't get that part messed up.
Thank you.
Is the AARP podcast, our AARP scams. And actually the guy who hosted, who's their ambassador, is Frank Abagnale. And if you've ever seen Catch Me If You Can with Leonardo DiCaprio, that's the character that he plays in that movie. So the real guy is actually an ambassador for AARP scams. And so he always like puts his 2 cents in on there. And so I know a lot of people don't like podcasts, but it's a really good one where he gives a lot of tips, and they go over like the most up-to-date scams. And so you can really like keep abreast of it. And so, you know, like if you're just cleaning up or you just kind of doing things, it's a really good idea because there's so much stuff going on out here. And then like now with COVID, you have to be more concerned with this because what's happening, we're all at home, right? So they have a captive audience at the moment. And so not only
desperate one too.
Yeah, and so not only can people be calling you all day, they can be showing up to your house. And so, especially with older adults, you really want to be careful because a lot of them, they're lonely, you know, like you're not with them right now and they've been holed up in the house and they don't have nothing to do and they don't have nobody to talk to. And just to kind of point out some generational differences, like, you know, we're cool. Like we can text each other like we used to doing that type of shit. But older adults are not used to doing that. They're used to picking up the phone. They're used to visiting and stuff like that. And so, you know, so again, when that happens, you know, we have to be on alert, you know, so you need to be asking the older adult in your life, you know, who they've been talking to. Oh, did anybody come by and visit you today? You know, things like that. Find out what's actually happening in their day because, you know, they will sit there and they'll call them. And I've experienced this. They will actually call them all day long until they get the response that they want. And now I just saw on Nextdoor app, I don't know if it's in every city, but I know that it's in Chicago, Nextdoor app, and it tells you about different things that are going on in your neighborhood. And, you know, like your neighbors will be on there just posting like, oh, there was a robbery at such and such street, or, you know, my dog is missing. If anybody's seen my dog, you know, let me know, and they'll post a picture of the dog. Well, they also let you know about different scams that are going on. And so I know like one of the things is that you got people who are actually showing up, let's say at an apartment building and saying, you know, well, we're the new management company and you owe rent, you know, and so you need to pay us now. And, you know, so you got stuff like that where they're trying to get money out of people, or, you know, they'll call people on the phone and say, we have a cure for the coronavirus. I think that's one of the newer ones. They have a cure for it. And so, so you pay so much money and they actually give you something. I can't remember if you go to a site or if they send it to you, but they actually send you something that you ingest, that you take, and you believe that yes, girl. And you got people out here, and you got people actually out here who are purchasing that stuff. They're actually purchasing.
And they don't know what they're taking?
They don't know what they're taking, no.
I'm assuming it's water?
I don't know what it is. They don't know what it is.
I need to call.
They don't know what it is. So, so there's a lot of crazy stuff that's going on right now. The other thing that you want to be aware of, you know, outside of the older adults is definitely, you know, the social media scams, you know, these card crackers who present very well as business owners and entrepreneurs. And I run into this a lot as a copywriter, and I do, I get a good bulk of my work from social media. And so I'm not knocking social media at all because I get the huge piece of my clientele from there. However, there are a lot of people on here who really are just preying on you. So they know that you're sitting at home right now. They know that some of y'all have been laid off or furloughed and you got a skill and, you know, you've been thinking about starting a business because you tired of your job anyway. And so here they going to try to sell you something that's going to be the cure-all and the fix-all for stuff. And so you want to really be careful of people, you know, who overpromise And like I always tell people, look for someone, or like I tell my clients, because I get a lot of complaints from clients who, like, let's say they've hired one of these coaches or, you know, whatever, stuff like that. You really want to, you can do business online. You can do business online. You can work with an individual. Make sure that that person has a legit skill, that they have a skill. If there's no skill there and all they're telling you is that I'm going to show you how to do what I did. Okay, that's fine.
That's a pyramid scheme.
But it's a pyramid scheme. It's a MLM. And what they've done now is, you know, back when we was kids, MLM was just a straight up ass pyramid scheme. You know, like I sell this much, you sell this much, you go to meet, and I said, you know, like that. Now they have fully dressed it up so it looks like entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
So you really have to be careful, and you have to look at how things are worded. And so that's how they get you. You know, I made $50,000. I made $50,000, and I'm gonna show you how I did it too. So you gonna pay me.
To me, that sentence sets off.
Right.
But it's so funny because I've even talked to people, younger generations. It was some scam that was out a year or so ago. I can't think of what it was. It was an investment scam. And I said to two of my coworkers, I said, give it 2 weeks and you're not going to hear nothing about it. Them saying, raving about it. And that's the other thing. Sit on it. Because if it disappears, like all the hoopla around it disappears in a couple weeks, it was a scam.
And that's the thing, you know, that's the thing. Some of it doesn't disappear because, well, it kind of does, but you have a lot of your big time influencers who do this stuff, to be honest. And so some of these people who got, you know, 100,000 followers. I deal with Instagram a lot. So 100,000 followers and stuff like that. And everybody's like, yes, girl, yes. And, you know, they're reposting their stuff. And I'm just like, you know, be careful with that because they're on a different venture every week. Mm-hmm. They're on a different venture every week. And I know how they work. And you know, and they'll put stuff in your inbox and say, you know, well, I got 19 spots left for this $20 class. Let me tell you something. They sit there and they calculate how much money they want to bring in every month. And they break it down by how many people they got to sell XYZ widgets to. So you one of them people. So they got to sell, you know, they got to sell $1,029 classes to such and such. So to you, it's not that much because you feel like, well, they putting me up on game for $29. Look, it's fine. I ain't telling you not to do it, but all I'm saying is you are part of the ploy at that point. And again, that's not for everybody. That's not for all the people.
But it's weighing your options. If you waste $29, that sucks. But yeah, I'd hope that if you're paying that money, that's not your last. But these scams that have you out hundreds and thousands of dollars.
Right. And they're telling you, you know, that your business is going to be up and running. And you know what? And they're not even so much doing that. Again, going back to even the white school, they're selling you a lifestyle. They're not selling you, you know, like they're not necessarily telling you, oh, you going to make this amount of money because that sounds scammy. So they're not telling you that. They're selling you a lifestyle. They're showing you some house that they live in that's decorated really pretty.
Their vacation.
They're showing you the clothes that they have. A lot of them have had surgery and they have nice bodies. And, you know, I'm just keeping it real. A lot of them have had surgery. So they, you know, but they look really nice. They look good. They look, you know, very kept up and stuff like that. And so they're out eating at nice restaurants. They're eating good food and they're living the lifestyle. They catching flights, you know, they getting flued out.
But you know what's funny? One of the organizations that did some of this exact same stuff is one that people love, which is LuLaRoe. Not LuLaRoe. Is that it? The leggings?
Yeah, LuLaRoe.
The one where it was like everybody was selling leggings. Like they're known for that same shit. But the thing is, the product, and this is what made it difficult, the product itself, from my understanding, I've never worn these leggings is legging to me, were quality. But it was the same, like selling people on this lifestyle and telling you can make all this money. And some people did well, but it's a saturation of the market too. Only so many people can sell leggings. I got, you know, at one point I had like 5 or 6 friends selling leggings I didn't want. I can't buy that many leggings. Like,
yeah,
it's one of those things, but there's some clear signs that I think people miss. how can I tell if this is a scam? So we can do this together because I got some, but I'm gonna let you start. So clear signs that something is a scam. I am Joe Schmo on the internet and I see something. How do I know it's a scam?
I think anytime that they're telling you that you are going to duplicate a process that they have done, in the sense of that you're going to make an unbelievable amount of money. So not necessarily, because I work with a lot of coaches. So let me just say there's some legit ones, but let's say they're not helping you achieve something
that you want to achieve. They're trying to give you something.
Exactly. They're trying to just sell you something. Like, I made $50,000. Let me sell you a book telling you how I made $50,000. I'm not gonna say this necessarily a scam, but it's an MLM, and those we don't really want to be bothered with.
Yeah, I think that's something important to bring up, is that a scam isn't necessarily I took your money and ran. It's
right.
You're not actually getting anything
right
paid for.
Right. And then there are some cases where they are taking money and the person is not getting anything for it. That's obviously a scam. That's a very clear one. And then I think, another is when I'm really big on credentials. And so what I have found, because I've been doing this for like 3 years now, and I have found that initially there was a lot of discomfort with coaches talking about where they went to school, where they got their skills. It was crazy. Like, I would ask, so where'd you go to school? Well, I want you to write me a bio. Okay, tell me where you went to school. Well, I don't want to put all that in there. But you want people to pay you $1,500 for a half an hour session, but you don't want to talk about where you invested that kind of money to learn, like the foundation for these skills. So look for people's backgrounds. That's what I tell folks. And, credibility doesn't always come through degrees. I got degrees, but I understand that. And I respect the fact that credibility doesn't always come through degrees. Sometimes it comes through a wealth of experience. It can come through, where you worked or what you've been through. Like, I work with some people who are, maybe they do professional development because they've been through so much and they've had to come through so much, and they've had therapy, and they've been able to do restoration. And they've had training. They've had lots of training. And so they're able to sort of offer a unique perspective to people. And so at least get somebody who's been where you are, and has some level of learned experience and has some level of success with doing the same thing for other folks. But my big thing is skill. How are you going to do this? Like, we not just gonna sit on a call and you just gonna tell me, well, you ain't doing this right. Well, why don't you do this? That's not a skill.
But I think people see coaching as a thing you can go into without having any hard like education or learning or training. Like, anybody can just hop up and be a coach. But the thing I want to add is that the difference between a coach that is more in the MLA scamming thing and a coach that's really going to help you is that they will a coach that will help you will coach you around the things that you want to achieve.
Exactly.
And that achievement isn't just that you want to own a business. They will want to know, well, what kind of business? What are your interests? Because you're no legitimate person is going to coach you to start a business is something you have no interest in.
Right. And again, and typically they'll have some other form of background experience. Like, there's one person who I just got through working with her. She's a regular client of mine. She's a life coach, but she's a licensed therapist. And so the ideas and the solutions that she's bringing to the table are very like fact-based. And then she's also adding in, some of her own stuff. She's adding in, affirmations, and she's adding in, all these different positive things and very modernized things. But it's going along with like like education, pretty much. That she has trained to be able to help people get through their problems. She just has decided to take a different route with it and not work like in a therapeutical setting and use that knowledge to, you know, help other people. I've had people who are, like I had another lady she was a nurse by trade or like a police officer. And so she did coaching, but she actually coached young people. She actually went in and would speak to groups of young people about different things, you know, and try to help them because she was a police officer by trade. She coaches, you know, other nursing students. So again, getting someone who has a skill or a trade or something that they're really good at. I have another person who she was lost in an abusive marriage for years with children and managed to get help and support, family support, and luckily was able to leave that situation, started her life over. I won't give too many details, but like, yeah, so she's able to help other women who, you know, and like she has a process.
But I think you're pointing out a pattern. Someone who can talk about the things that they've experienced to help them learn and not just their successes.
Right.
A coach who only is focusing on their success. I made $50,000. You can do it too.
Right.
The same thing is I've experienced these things and I can help you get through them, get out of them, whatever. I think another thing is if the ideally what it sounds like is they're selling a product, but really they're selling you on how to get other people to sell this product.
Exactly.
That is a pyramid scheme. If I'm like, I sell, like you said, widgets. I sell these widgets. I just picked up something. And you contact me about selling them. And what I'm trying to tell you is how you can get other people to sell them so that money will trickle up or down or whatever to you. That means
because it's as simple as this. On social media, it's as simple as this. Share this out. Tell a friend. You know, share this out with as many people as you can. So for every one person I bring on there, you know, if I'm a true believer, I don't really share stuff out like that, you know, because I don't believe in that. I just kind of think, you know, if someone asks me for advice, I give it to them, but I don't push anything on someone. I may suggest something if I think it's helpful for you, but I'm not going to just keep pushing this person's content on you because they told me to, if I don't know that it's going to provide some kind of value to your life. But you have people who will do that. So here for every one person I get on here, I might get them to pull at least 2 to 3 more people on here, you know, so now I have, you know, an audience. And so again, you know, with the live functions and things like that, it's very helpful. And I've used the live functions and I've ended up getting clients from it and stuff. The lives are another way, because we were kind of talking about ways to kind of know whether somebody knows their stuff. Watch people on live. I know y'all don't want to do it. Watch their lives. Some people have YouTube videos. Watch their stuff. And the difference is astounding. Because when you are on live, people are asking you questions on the spot. And you need to be
so you
able
can't do
to
your
answer.
script and your rehearsal.
You can't do your script, and you can't tell them the same thing that the last 15 people on the feed just said. You need to be able to say something that is authentic and comes from a place of experience versus, you know, what you think, what people want to hear, you know, now. I am not with the trends. I'm not with none of that. I'm not really with the yes, girl, yes, and all of this shit like that, because all of that stuff tends to fade. And when I first got into this, that was the huge thing. Like, I would send people stuff back and they were just like, well, basically don't got enough cowbell. You know, it didn't have enough. And I'm just like, look, this is going to be on your website. And 3 years from now, people not going to be talking like this. They're not going to be, you need evergreen stuff that's going to sound.
If you grow, and that's something to think about, like a brand that grows, a small brand that is targeted towards an audience that's only in one particular set that uses certain cannot grow. Because if I am from someplace else and I see your brand, that ain't for me. It has to be universal.
And like now I'm working with one client who she's actually a bona fide consultant, like really good. And she's she has a good hood presence. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like she got a real good hood presence. So she is very good with her social media presence and pulling people in and selling her products. She has degrees, she has work experience, so she has the stuff to back it up. And I used to listen to her a lot when I first got started, with my business, and she was very helpful, and she's become a client of mine. And so one thing with her is that, at first, she wanted all of that. She wanted all that. Now it's 3 years later. And guess what? Now she's just got on a partnership with a very large corporate organization that, because she's very bright. So she was able to start working with some other folks that look different and things like that. And then she got into this corporate partnership, and she's, doing all these different things. So now she's coming to me and she's like, I wrote all this shit and I need you to like fix it for me. Whereas before it was like, well, I'm not worried about typos. I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about that. I'm just getting it out there. Now she's like, well, can you fix all this shit for me? Because I'm going corporate now. And it's gotta be, I don't want the, and so, I wrote something for her like I normally do. Like I did the Yes Girl Yes, like basically how she really talks. I did kind of like her authentic style, because to, really be like a good copywriter, you have to really be able to like mimic people down to a science. And so I would watch her incessantly and stuff like that. And I could just write.
And I'm gonna say that is a skill. I've had to write things on behalf of my boss. And we've had several people do it, and you don't want it to be that if I wrote something today and someone else wrote it tomorrow, it sounds like two different people talking. You really have to know that person's voice. And I remember you told me about like, and this is something else to me, and I'm gonna switch topics soon. I'm looking at the time. I want to keep this an hour.
That's fine.
Things you've told me before about like getting to know your client, and so. To me, a way to spot a scam is they don't give a shit about you. They don't have no questions about who you are and what you do. Because for what you do, you have to sit here and get to know the client, where they're coming from, their tone to how they speak. Otherwise, every single client is going to get the exact same thing. It's
exactly
your voice.
It's a formula. And, formulas are good in some sense. Systems are good, and you need those. That's one thing I'm learning now. Like, you really do need systems and processes in order to function as a business. Otherwise, it take you all day to do shit and get things done. But in another sense, there are some things that they can't be formulaic. There are some things that just have to be organic. And one of those things is getting to know your client, like getting to know what drives them. And I get a lot of people who I'll sit on a call with them, because I don't even do like Zoom calls. I just do regular ass phone calls with them on the first round. And, I'll say, well, tell me, about your business. Tell me about like yourself or anything like that. And they give me, the very well, I do this and I come from the corporate world and I blah, 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 and then we talk, for maybe like another 20 to 25 minutes. And then at some point, like, I always know when they about to get to the real shit, because what happens is they pause, they sigh, and then they go, I just really want to help, women, succeed and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that's it. That's what you want to do. And then when they get their copy back, they're amazed. They're like, oh my God, you just totally nailed it. And it's like, but I had to, like really pull it out of you. It requires a lot of like interviewing skills. So, it's very interesting, working with people, but I'm finding now that people are, they're looking to get into these more corporate environments. And a lot of people want to talk about corporate, but they don't really know like what that entails. And they say they worked in corporate, but they've not really. And, even to work in corporate, like, to be honest, I could have been emptying the garbage cans at corporate. So
I was going to say, I've realized that in my position that you can work at a company and work in a service role and work in a production role. That's like, I could work for a mortar company putting the cars together. That doesn't mean I've worked in corporate. That's a corporation. But the person working, putting the, the tires on, does not have the same experience and knowledge as the person working in HR, an administrator, something like that.
And they don't even have the same perspective. I would take it one step further and say they don't have the same perspective, because the way that, like, I feel that I work in a corporate environment. I'm not going to say, oh, I work at corporate. I have worked in a corporate environment, which means that I feel that I worked in an environment that's strongly influenced by corporate values. And so I feel that I can speak to what corporate organizations typically want and like how they want stuff and how they move and operate. However, my perspective on how things maybe should be done, or, like whatever, is different. It's not the same. My allegiance to it is very different, because I work in a servicing role for a corporate organization. And so, for me, it's always kind of like, well, no, we should be focusing on this. And they like, no, we own this over here.
And that's the difference too, the employee versus the boss or the manager or the leader. Because something I've realized is that I know and this is from my time in housing, I understand the process, and employees don't always understand the process. So the process of, if this happens, you may not see. You can go to HR and say, I feel like this is happening to me. I feel like I'm being targeted. And employees feel like because that person isn't immediately fired, no one heard them. But not understanding that legally, you can't just be like, you told me, so you like, there's a process.
Right.
And that perspective makes a big difference.
Yep.
But so
and I think people just align it. I think people just want to align it with money, like with the idea of money. That corporate things are just lucrative and very like streamlined and well put together. And to be honest with you, that's not always the case.
I don't think it's ever the case.
Like, I would say that, like, it's definitely a culture. It's definitely like a way of doing things and a way of thinking about things. And I think, like, I'm the type of person that I think one of the positive things about how I think is that I try to think on both sides of the fence. So I do try very much to think about, like, okay, I want it to be this way, but how is this really going to affect management? So I sort of understand when they make certain decisions. I may not agree with it, but I get, like, no, you have to focus on, like, I'm focused on this one person. You're focused on, like, is the whole building going to burn down? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So, and I get that. Like, I may not want to think about that in the moment, but I get it. Like, you're trying to keep the doors open. So, so the focus, so that I can do this job over here. So I get it, and the approach may be very different, but.
I have to ask one last question, because we really have time.
Sure.
I have to, because it's important that for me that we talk about it. We got to keep it short, unfortunately.
Okay.
I want to talk about the very last scam there is, which is toxic masculinity. And you working with seniors, you already know what I'm about to ask you about.
Oh my God.
Here's you see men, Black men, and in their twilight years. Could you just talk about it? This is our final thing. Just talk about it a little bit, because I feel like you see, everybody, all these men need to know, Lord Jesus. Go ahead and speak on it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna, as I'm doing this, I'm gonna kind of like plug my charger into my phone so that it doesn't die. So I might look a little weird here, but yeah. So again, so I've been working with seniors for like 10 years, and one of the things that I always tell people is that what's really valuable about working with older people is that you get to see how things look on the other end of life. I think a lot of times when you're a younger person, you think about getting older, but you don't really have a good reference for it. I mean, I think a lot of us are blessed to have grandparents and older adults, but when you see it in mass, like when you see like just a lot of older people and how things progress with them, it really makes you look at your own life and the decisions that you make. And there's so many decisions that I have made just based on what I have seen. Like, how I treat my family, how I treat my parents, how I treat my children, the decision to have more than one child. Like all these different things are like really deeply influenced by my experiences with people who have been living for 70, 80, 90 years. Like I've even had 100-year-old person. I have one person now who's like 2 years away from 100. There are more of those people in that generation living towards 100 and above. So as far as the men are concerned, I've had more of an experience at the place I'm at now. I've been through 3 different affordable housing buildings. I'm in Chicago, so affordable housing is like a really big business here because there's lots of people to house and there are lots of seniors and they need to get out of these homes so that people can rehab them and, you know, but that's a whole other
gentrify them.
Yeah, gentrify and all that stuff. So they're in these buildings. And if you know anything about the history of Chicago, we had oodles and oodles of projects. So when they tore those down, those people had to go somewhere. And now those people are 70, 80, 90 years old. So they're back in affordable housing, which is a nice way of saying the projects. But they keep those buildings up, you know, a lot nicer than what they would keep up the stuff. The only change is that they do have to allot a certain percentage of the building to people who are under 62 and mentally disabled, which is a conversation for a whole nother show. But
yes. Anyway. Again, we've been talking on Instant Messenger, on Facebook Messenger for decades. So I know that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be good and stay on topic here. So anyway, as far as the men are concerned, you know, your grandpas are trash. Your grandpas are trash. Your uncles are trash. Your great uncles are trash. I just like to point that out. Some of you guys know that.
They're older, so they seem really nice.
Yeah, because I am convinced that they have molested people in your family. I do not say any of this in jest. I do not say any of this in jest. I say this with all the seriousness that I can. I'm convinced that these are the aging molesters of your family. The go hug Uncle so-and-so or don't go near Uncle so-and-so because you know he be molesting and all this other type of shit. Uncle Chester's. That's who I got up in my building. And so it's very shocking to them when they meet any type of woman who is not with it, because they're very accustomed to women being with it, whether it's out of fear or whether
and with it by you mean it's like submitting to how
going along with it. And you know, we go along with things not necessarily because we agree with them. We go along with shit because maybe we're scared.
We have no other option.
And you know, maybe not even scared of them, but scared of how you'll be perceived. So no woman wants to be perceived as like stuck up. You don't want to be perceived as like dry. You don't want to be perceived as, you know, like she ain't got no man, she don't get no dick, she ain't blah 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 blah, you know. But me, I don't care. You can say that shit about me.
Say, a lot of women our age is like, I mean, it's whatever.
So you know, so I'm dry as hell and I don't really care. And so a lot of them are very shocked and surprised when they find out that I am married, that I do have children and things like that, because they just think I'm like just a dry bitch. And I was
gonna say that's a whole generation that thinks if you don't go along with it, no man speak to you.
Yeah, like I don't allow them to. I got into it with one of the men the very first week I was on the job because they actually came in. The men were coming in. They had heard that I had started working there. They knew I was female, and they came in my office and would just stare at me. And they would look me up and down, and they would just, you know, like fresh meat. They would do that to me, and I would just be like, okay, what? You know, and then I had one come in there and he tried to call me baby. And I never forget, I told him, I said, my name is Danielle. And it wasn't that, you know, because old people always call you baby, honey, sugar.
But you know, black folks. You know the difference.
And you're not supposed to do it, but you know, these are people who are old enough to be my great grandparents. So, you know, if it's endearing, it doesn't offend me. But that wasn't where he was coming from. He was coming from a sexual place. And so I let him know, you know, my name is Danielle, like very firmly. You're not going to just come in here and talk to me any kind of way that you want. And oh, girl, he was mad. He was pissed at me for months until he found out. He was pissed. He was going around a bit. She didn't want me to call her baby. He was just telling anybody who would listen to him. Because I think the previous women who had worked there had a different type of experience with him, and they allowed those things. And again, I don't blame them. They possibly had their own reasons for stuff. My wig's slipping off, but that's okay. So
that's all right. My wig is always slipping. That's why I'm glad the camera fuzzy. Y'all don't need to see. I got like a Doja Cat wig where it just start. My hairline just start.
Just
like
at this point, I don't even care. I done took it off. So, yeah. So
real,
they are
yes.
they are like really crazy, and you know, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, it's very hard, even if you're a very strong woman, because to deal with it every day, it gets exhausting. And one of the first things that I asked when I took the job, I said, how do you guys handle sexual harassment from the residents? How do you handle it? You know, and of course you're on an interview, so of course they tell you, oh, we don't accept it, we don't tolerate it, we don't blah, 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 blah. But, you know, when you have, you know, other women there who don't call them out on it, it's very difficult. Or you have other women who have been conditioned to believe that these men are just frisky. And so they not comfortable with it, but they've been told for so long, they just frisky, they don't mean no harm. And they're
feel
okay
like they can't do nothing because the assumption is they can't even like
right
the vehicle.
Right. And so I'm just like, I'm not going for that shit. You don't go to the aid office and talk to the caseworker like that. Y'all know who y'all can talk to like this and who you can't, you know, who you can get away with it. So I just, you know, these are men who in their younger years, I'm absolutely certain that they were trash. Many of them have multiple children who don't come see them. It's really sad to see. And I think that this is something that, you know, Black men, because these are Black men that I work with, really have to think about. We know all Black men ain't bad. You got a daddy, I got a daddy, and we lived in the house with them. So this ain't all Black men. But, you know, for these ones who are out here and they're making these babies, it's nothing new. And they are trashing them and they're not taking care of them. They're not paying child support. They end up in a building with me, you know, saying, don't call me baby. Yep. And they get sick. They get very sick. And it's very rare that they have people who even come and give a damn enough to even take care of them. And you'll be sitting there and you'll have somebody who's sick. You'll have a man who's sick and like on his deathbed, girl, and you'll be trying to call people and call their kids and all this other type of stuff. And nobody will even come until they're dead. And they come to go through their apartment to see if they got some money up in there.
You know, I told Mallory this morning, we were talking about men and how they don't have the ability to think far out, which is why they're bad at cheating. But to me, this is a symptom of that, of like, when you when you abandon a child, when you their mother, when you pull a future, you know, that comes back to bite you in your ass. And
it does.
Age. Because what I remember things you told me. This is one of the things, you know, like I think my friends tell me things that stay with me for a long time. And one of the things you brought up is like, it's an age where suddenly they realize they want to settle down. They want to reach with these children. They want to do all the stuff that they should have did 20, 30 years ago. Don't call me 45 and be like, hey, I know I ain't never been.
And you're a burden. That's the thing.
Yes.
You're a burden at that point. Like, I hate to say it that way, but it's like you're a burden. You know, so you're contacting me. Not only are you contacting me, but you're contacting me when you're at a point where you need me to take you to the grocery store. Like you need me to take you to your doctor's appointment.
You never did shit for me before.
You've never done any of that stuff for me. You know, and y'all know, transparency, you know, my dad died a few years ago and he was crazy as hell. He had a lot of problems, but I grew up in the house with him. You know, he fed me, he took care of me, he protected me, all that kind of stuff. So when he got sick or if he was at that place now, I would do all that shit for him with no questions asked because he did it for me, you know? So it's like, you're not looking for perfection, but you should be there. You should be there.
But there are a lot of men who believe in, and I hear that narrative all the time when people say, why don't you have kids, or you need to have kids, and you ask why, who's going to take care of you when you're older? And I feel like there's a lot of men who feel that way, like the purpose of having children is someone to take care of you older, not understanding, even if that's your goal, it's like a bank account. You don't just open a bank account, put no money and expect to take money out 20 years later.
And this is even true with like, it doesn't even have to be your biological children, because everybody don't have kids, but like nieces and nephews, let's say, or like, yeah, like nieces and nephews, for example. Like I've had people who they might not have kids, but I've had some men who they don't have children, but they have nieces and nephews who they have really good rapport with. And so the nieces and nephews will come and be like, no, we're going to take care of Uncle so-and-so. And, you know, they'll move them out once
that's
they
what
can't
I'm
take
praying
care
I get, because I don't know what I'm
anymore. You know, and so again, those are those kinds of relationships, you know, that you have to cultivate over the years. And their relationships with women, a lot of them, I have a lot of men in my women, a lot of men in my building right now who are married. They're legally married. They're legally married, and their wife lives someplace else. And I already don't know what done happened. They wasn't acting right. And these women, these boomers,
Black people don't get divorced.
Who coming up now, these boomers who coming up now, they putting mofos out. They put mofos out. So they putting these men out now, girl. They putting them out, and these men are having to go live in affordable housing because they tired of them, because they out here gambling. They still trying to womanize. They still trying to do all this other type of stuff. Girl, I got one man who he is in a wheelchair and stuff, and he is legally married. His wife, you know, she's on and off with her health. And he was like, my wife called me and told me, and he's nice. He's not even one of the ones who be, you know, acting a fool with us or nothing. But girl, one day he was like, my wife told me she want me to come live with her. And I told her, we both sick. How I'm going to do that? I'm sick too. I can't take care of you. But he's in better condition than she is. But he doesn't want to live with her because he doesn't want to have to take care of her. So it's, yeah.
Look, I'm just end it there. I'm looking at it. I really try to keep this an hour. And this is the problem. When I'm talking to my good friends, it's going to be like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I'm probably have to have you come back because this is my topic right here. This right here. Because you know how I feel about men. I done had a drink and I'm on my second one. Can't nobody.
Me too. I done snatched my wig off, like my edges is
hanging so out. I'm gonna wrap this up. Don't hang up though. But I just say thank you everyone who is actually watched any of these. If you watched this, I appreciate it. I know I don't have these public. I don't have a lot of people on my Facebook page. This is all for shiggles. And so that in a year from now, I want to show up on my memories, I can share this motherfucker again. But thank you for watching. I hope you learned something about avoiding wife school, avoiding scams, avoiding being an old black man sad, wish that he had taken care of his children. And if you didn't learn shit, well, just watch the next one. Have a good evening and a good night.